Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, Canada releases its latest cyber threat report. Bearing in mind India's continued attempts to control the nation's politics against Sikhs, we take a look at how they feature in this latest update. Meanwhile, over the border, Donald Trump is doing his level best to absorb the country into the United States. Can Mark Carney salvage anything from this bizarre situation? Well, as far as Sikhs for Justice are concerned, all they now care about in their latest statement is to not just order Sikhs to help make America great again, but also to wage war on India. Financial and economic war, that is, this time. And this weekend sees the spectacular Sikh celebration of Hola Mohalla across the world. We discuss what it's all about. All this and more on today's show. But joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus. And for those who noticed last night me looking down at my screen here, it was because we had a major shooting event in the neighborhood. Some more gangs going off, and so nobody was killed though, so that was the bright side of it. But yeah, just my apologies if you noticed me looking at a screen last night. There was lots going on in the neighborhood.
Well, if you see James running for cover, you know what's going on. But
the show must go on.
Indeed. Well, hopefully until then, James and I will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And we will, of course, as usual, take a look at loads of great comments at the end of the show. So thank you for those. Right, James, let's get the show underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Of course, there's been a lot of talk about Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States. At first, it started out as seemingly a joke, and the comments that were made at Mar-a-Lago prior to Trump being sworn in. However, Canada has taken that much more seriously as of late, with the ongoing rhetoric coming out of the White House, not only from Trump, but also from the likes of the press secretary of Elon Musk and others that are part of the Trump administration. Canada has been looking at the security threats along our border, and that was in regards to Donald Trump's claim that all of the tariffs that were going in had to do with the fentanyl and other drugs going across the border, as well, of course, as the threat of people crossing the border as well. And, of course, he has concerns about the United States and security. And of course, we have the same concerns here in Canada. So we each want to protect our countries. But at the same time, the rhetoric now has gotten old in terms of Canada being annexed into the 51st state and him calling Justin Trudeau the governor. Now, that won't much matter come this Friday because Mark Carney will be sworn in as the next Prime Minister of Canada as of Friday. That is the current plan. But if we take a look further at what's going on in terms of the threats that Canadians are starting to see as the U.S. continues their rhetoric, we just stand firm. Canadians stand firm in the rejection of the idea, with over 80% of Canadians opposing annexation. And there are a small group of people that are excited about the potential, and they are getting a lot of play, especially when it comes to Fox News. And that's a small group out of Alberta of a couple hundred people out of millions. So needless to say, it's being played as a much bigger support for that than it is. Now, we know that Justin Trudeau previously said that there's not a snowball's chance in hell of Canada becoming a part of the United States, and most Canadians agree with that sentiment. And right now, throughout social media and elsewhere, people are hearing the term elbows up. And what that essentially comes from is a hockey saying, before the fight starts, the elbows are up, the gloves are off. And so that is where that comes from, that Canada is prepared to do anything it takes to protect the sovereignty of a nation. And as I said, people at first just brushed it off as a joke, but it seems to be getting more serious, considering that the U.S. government, including Donald Trump himself, has said that they want to use the economic pressure to force Canada to become a part of the U.S. And then also recent statements that he wants to redraw the border between Canada and the United States because he doesn't feel that it is a fair border or accurate. Data shows that 1.5% of unauthorized U.S. border crossings when it comes to migrants was going across from Canada in 2024. And when it comes to the fentanyl, of course, that was a very low percentage of the total amount going across the border into the U.S. Less than 1% of fentanyl in the U.S. was crossing in from Canada. Now, of course, we can look at other things that are going on with the Trump 25% tariffs that are on again, off again, 50% tariffs that are on again, off again. It just keeps going back and forth. The bright side is that Canadian nationalism and Canadian pride has gone up to 84%, which is 4% just from earlier this year. And of course, the Liberal government did allocate $1.3 billion for the border security to increase it and help to appease Donald Trump in those claims that, of course, we touched on already. Now, the tit-for-tat escalation between the two nations is sparking a trade war, with Ottawa retaliating with $30 billion in tariffs on U.S. goods. But that's only the start of it. With Canadians getting very angered and upset about the annexation talk, there has been a major movement for tourism to be boycotted into the U.S., which Canada is one of the largest tourism industry supporters for the United States, as well as buy Canadian and buy other goods that are manufactured or come from outside of the United States, which is really taken off in Canada and is having a major impact on the retailers, wholesalers, manufacturers from the U.S. Hopefully we can see with the transition to Mark Carney, a transition to more of a negotiated settlement to find a way to move past this and to restore somewhat of a trust between the two nations and the trade agreements. But given what's happening right now, in speaking to a lot of Canadians, it seems that the trust and the confidence in the U.S. right now is not only really out of hand between Canada and the U.S., but also other international governments and citizens. So it's going to take a lot to restore the balance that we once had, Angus.
Yeah, what is all this about? I mean, I have to say, much as I try to interpret Trump's moves on all these sorts of things, I still remain a little baffled by this one. What is he trying to achieve by this? Of course, the US is not going to absorb Canada. Canada is never going to, well, never's too long a word, but Canada is very, very unlikely to ever be absorbed into the United States. So what is Trump trying to achieve by this? He's not stupid, much as the left-wing press like to highlight on a regular basis. He does make it easy for them, let's be honest. But he's a very, very clever guy. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what anybody says. This guy is the most powerful man on the planet. The results speak for themselves. If he was that stupid, he wouldn't be the president of the United States. I challenge anybody else to rise to that sort of position. If you think he's stupid, he's beaten you to it. So the guy is not stupid. Ultimately, he is an extremely shrewd, clever guy. He knows how to operate. He gets results. We've seen this all the way through. But he does lay himself open constantly to his critics. I read a fascinating article recently. It was by a journalist, and it really went against the flow of narrative, where most articles are anti-Trump, and you see the comments after the articles now being manipulated to turn against Trump, even those who previously supported him. And you see this massive flow against him. But he knows what he's doing. He knows that what he's doing is creating this. But the ultimate question is why. And this article I read was fascinating. He said he is, and this is written by a guy who has actually worked closely with him for many years, decades even. He said the guy is a chess player. He can see 20 moves ahead. He knows exactly where he's going. And he just does this. And people can't work out what he's doing, but he gets results. He doesn't always get it right. He's still human at the end of the day. But on balance, he gets more right than he gets wrong. So, Jays, I suspect there is something behind this whole 51st state thing. I reckon he does this. One of his techniques, one of his negotiating techniques, is this sort of what we call problem, reaction, solution. If he wants to do something, if he wants to achieve something that the other party does not want to achieve, he creates a problem, which then provokes the other side into reacting, demanding a solution. It turns out that solution is exactly what Trump wanted in the first place. So he actually does this roundabout route to achieve what he does. And that roundabout route quite often is quite baffling, and people think, what on earth is he doing? I wonder if this is one of these. So I think we can only judge at the end of his time in office to what he has achieved and what part this played in it. I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a chess player. I'm just a bystander, a simple chap on perspectives trying to work out what on earth this guy is doing. But all I would say is to his critics and those who love to tear him down, this guy is not stupid. Look at what he's achieved in the past. He's a president of the United States. The guy is a high achiever. The guy is intelligent. He's a lot more intelligent than all of us put together, to be frank. What this is about, James, I have absolutely no idea. He's after Greenland. What's that about? A little bit more obvious. Greenland occupies geopolitically a massively important situation, geographically speaking, in terms of the Atlantic passage from Russia. That's more understandable. Whether or not he'll actually achieve Greenland, actually, I think I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years' time Greenland might be a part. Well, it won't be part of the United States, but I think there could be an enormously powerful relationship built between the people of Greenland and the United States. That's a very obvious geopolitical move. But Canada, the 51st state of the United States, what is that about, James? I have absolutely no idea.
Well, and once again, Angus, you give him a lot more credit than I do. We're polar opposites on our opinions of Trump, but that's what keeps the show interesting. And, and like everybody, keep a good respect when you have the conversations. I love hearing your side of it, as I hope you enjoy hearing mine. But yeah, it is what it is, and we'll have to watch and see how it plays out. But, the damage that he's doing to the relationship in the interim definitely could be something that may not be able to be undone. So we'll have to see how that plays out and where we end up at the end of the day. But with that, as we know that Canadians are anxious about the threat there, something that they're more concerned about, Angus, is the cyber threats that are targeting Canada. And there was a large report that's been put out for the 2025 and 2026 threat years and what they are focusing on in terms of the cyber threats. Now, a lot of times we've spoken about this in terms of the social media space and others. So I thought we'd look at it a bit different. And this here part that we're looking at tonight is focused on the India threat. And of course, the report really in-depth covered that, as well as Iran, Russia, China, and the ones that you would typically expect to be included in cybersecurity threats to other nations. So with that said, we are looking at a complex and evolving cyber threat landscape with concerns ranging from state-sponsored espionage and the escalating threat of ransomware, fueled in part by the growing cybercrime as a service. And I thought that was really interesting because a lot of people don't realize what cybercrime as a service is. Essentially what's happening is when you are in an office and you are using, for example, Microsoft applications, that is software as a service. You are paying a fee for that licensing to utilize the software. You don't actually own it. You are paying a fee to use it. And this is no different than a lot of different programs that are ransomware, cyberware, all kinds of different nefarious software programs that are created with the whole end goal of bilking Canadians, Europeans, Americans, and so forth out of millions and millions of dollars a year. And we'll look at that in just a moment. But when it comes to India, they are seen as a major player in the cyber threat arena. And the report sheds light on India's growing cyber capabilities and its potential impact on Canada. And this could be, looked at by all nations, because a lot of the threats would remain the same for different countries and concerns. Now, according to the assessment, India very likely uses its cyber program to advance its national security imperatives, including espionage, counterterrorism, and the country's efforts to promote its global status and counter narratives against India and the Indian government. So again, that goes on to influence the opinions of the greater population outside of India. Now, the report goes on further, stating that they assess the Indian state-sponsored cyber threat actors likely conduct cyber threat activity against the Government of Canada networks for the purpose of espionage. They judge the official bilateral relations between Canada and India will very likely drive Indian state-sponsored cyber threat activity against Canada, and it underscores the importance of vigilance and robust cybersecurity measures within the Canadian government systems. And that is something that Canada has really focused on over the last several years and is really targeting as we move forward, not only in terms of our Elections Canada systems that we've talked quite a bit about on this show, but in terms of fighting back with infrastructure, with energy and all of that. We'll look at that in just a moment because it might be surprising to some, the areas that they are targeting. Now, when you look at the number of incidents, you can see the chart here on the screen that goes from 2021, 2022, 2023. There was a bit of a dump in 2022, and that probably had to do with, the focus being elsewhere on the international recovery and, economic reasons. But you can also see that 2024, they haven't got the final numbers out for all of the threats and all of the incidents of attempted breaches of the systems, but they anticipate that they are quite substantially higher. Now, a lot of threats come from the cyber crime as a service in terms of the financially motivated cyber crime. And that remains the most likely threat against Canadians and Canadian organizations. That report emphasizes the critical role of the cyber crime as a service model in resilience of cyber crime, and it lowers the barriers to entry and enables actors who are less technically sophisticated to carry out cyber crimes. So let's take a quick peek here at what it involves. Now, you've got malware as a service. And that is malicious software that just destroys data and drives and computer networks. So that is what that part is. Now, ransomware as a service is basically they buy a program that allows them to go in and take control of data or systems, and then they demand a ransom from those companies or government organizations. And we've seen that happen to some of the biggest Canadian corporate retailers just over the last year to 2 years, where they had to pay millions in order to get their data back and to re-secure it. Access as a service is selling systems or programs that allow them to access the databases. So, for example, if they were to buy the use of a program to access the Canadian, say, Revenue Canada Services Agency website or their internal systems, that again becomes a major issue. When it comes to phishing as a service, again, tools and instructions for phishing attacks. That's where they send you a fake link or just different things and get you to enter your information. And then they can get more details about you and steal your personal identity or your corporate identity and so forth. Now, the other one is the botnets, of course, as what they call distributed denial of service attacks. And that is where the botnets or the programs get into your system and they don't let you do certain things on whether it's your network or external, the internet, intranet, all of that. Exploits of the service, of course, that would be programs that allow them to exploit all of your data and your systems and go from there. We'll just quickly go through the rest. If you are interested in looking at this a bit closer, it will be posted onto our post sections of the channel, so you can look for it there over the next day or two. But IT systems, those are IT companies, 159% in terms of the increase and the ransoms being paid. Finance and construction at 133%. I found very interesting because I wouldn't have seen construction as an industry that was so lucrative for these cyber hackers and cyber criminals. Transportation, of course, we know that that's going to be a growing area as more and more computer chips and reliance of online linking is brought to light with the different computers that are in automobiles these days, especially when it comes to autonomous driving, when it comes to navigation and so forth. What's going to stop them from shutting down vehicles, just randomly shutting them off? So that's going to be a major concern as well. Professional services, retail, healthcare, and energy. And I was surprised that energy was so low in comparison to the other numbers, where they could potentially shut down power grids and they could actually get into computer systems that control drilling and oil extraction, the pipelines, all of that. So again, it is a big concern that is just moving at exponential rates when it comes to these threats. And so to finish this off, you can see in the chart here where they are deploying it, how it's getting into the systems, and the whole cycle that it continues on. And if you're interested, you can look that up. Again, we'll have these charts and this article available to you on our post section. Angus, I think that it probably is safe to say that a lot of the same threats that we see here in this report are also issues that are going to be facing countries, including yours.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very concerning, actually, when we see the growth of this. It's not surprising. The Internet of Things, the interconnectedness of modern society now is a wonderful thing in so many ways, but it also has laid us open to so much vulnerability. And you only need to see when things go wrong to see just how dangerous and how vulnerable our situation is, actually across the world, all of us. If there's any sort of outage of any description, the internet or power or whatever, our whole infrastructure just falls apart. That is how dependent our lives have become on the internet, the connectedness of all things. Hospitals, energy supplies, water supplies, even transport systems, logistics, even retail. You can't even go into a shop and buy something when systems go down because you can't pay for it because they're trying to drive cash out. And this means, how vulnerable we are as a society, which means it's great in so many ways. And on the plus side, it means we live in the most incredible era of change now, where so much has become so technologically advanced. Our lives have become so inordinately easier compared to 100 years ago, for example, in many ways. But yes, it does mean that bad actors are able now to bring down whole countries, the whole infrastructure of a country with a flick of a switch or a digital switch. That is how vulnerable we are. So yes, India has the potential to do this, of course, as does China. We do know China, and particularly Russia, are very active in cybercrime and cyber attacks, particularly against the United States at the moment. We see it all the time. We see it reported all the time. But India specifically, India has an enormously well-educated IT population. It has a very strong IT sector. There are a lot of people in India who are very literate at IT. They are very technically minded because, of course, the world has outsourced a lot of the IT production, manufacturing in a digital sense to India. So, of course, they have a very well-educated, very knowledgeable base of people who can easily be recruited by Hindutva, for example, as many have been, to go out and undertake nefarious operations against other nations, whether it's Canada, the US, or Europe. And clearly they are doing this. Interestingly, at the end of the day, we all do it. Let's be honest about this. The UK does it, the US does it, Canada does it. We all get up to clandestine activities, or at least our security services get up to this clandestinely across the internet. We all spy on each other physically and digitally. That goes on, we all know it. The question is when it crosses over into something beyond national interest, into something a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more criminal even. India has been accused on a regular basis of getting up to, certainly crossing the line, certainly, particularly when Hindutva are involved. And one of the key words I noticed there, India is justified in doing a lot of what it does because we do the same, as long as it doesn't actually damage or cross that line. We all abide by the rules. But India's definition, it uses it for counter-terrorism. And this is a word, a very provocative word that we often use. What do they class as terrorism? Well, terrorism, yeah, we all have a pretty clear definition, a pretty clear, I would say to some degree, black and white definition of what terrorism is. But India doesn't. India classes the Khalistan movement as terrorists. Now, in any democratic nation, the Khalistan movement is not a group of terrorists. It is not a terrorist organisation. It is a perfectly legitimate democratic movement with every right to demand sovereignty for Khalistan. Yet India sees it as a terrorist organisation, which it sees to justify its cyber attacks or justify its cyber activities, its illegal cyber activities across other nations, whether it's Canada, America or Europe or even Australia, etc. So that is where it comes down to definitions and where those definitions are questionable. And that is where India, I think, has probably crossed the line, and why Canada likewise is identifying this threat as saying this is potentially crossing this line because their activities go beyond just a general legitimate national interest and protection into a political attack. Again, there could be levels of hypocrisy levelled at the West. Yeah, we do interfere politically in other nations, and we do call that out on a regular basis. We hold our governments to account, and this is why our counterparts in India should be doing the same about your government in India. Is you should be calling out your government in India. You are politically interfering in other nations. Example being, of course, the Khalistan movement. You should stop your government doing that in the way that we call out our own governments to say you've got to stop politically interfering in other nations. Yeah, we've got a national interest, but when you're replacing democratically elected leaders, for example, for somebody that you prefer for political reasons, not necessarily a national interest reason, that's where it crosses the line, James. So it's a very dirty business, is what I would say.
It is, but if it was boring, Angus, the James Bond movies would not be as popular as they are.
But
it's all
James
about
Bond,
the intrigue and the mystery.
Indeed, James Bond always refers to himself as a blunt instrument. I dare say James Bond in reality wouldn't know a keyboard from a mouse. I think, but he knows his Walter PPK. That's more his style.
And that's okay. I know a lot of people in the same boat.
I think you and me both, James. Right, James. Let's excuse me. Let's move on, and I'm going to jump across your border, James, down south into the United States, and Sikhs for Justice. They've raised their head again. I sort of quickly report on their latest video because it's quite an interesting change of tack, actually, and obviously it's following the same old theme of attacking India as they often do. But they've actually we've got the referendum coming up in Los Angeles. Next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend. So, of course, a lot of it is actually geared around to highlighting and publicising that. But their latest video, Guptwant Singh Panun's latest video, does actually turn things, pivots in a slightly different direction. It's quite an interesting direction. He's raising this whole issue of MAGA, Make America Great Again. And again, he's playing to this Trump movement, actually. He's saying, he heads his latest release as Loyal to MAGA or Leave America. And he's targeting Indo-American Hindus. So the Hindu population that are residing in the United States. But again, it's leading up to the referendum. So with the Trump administration branding India what Trump calls a tariff regime, the Sikhs Justice has announced an unprecedented economic offensive beginning after the referendum. So after this referendum in Los Angeles on March the 23rd, which I think is next Sunday, a financial warfare campaign should be launched against India to, what he says, kill Modi's India economically. Again, he's using this deliberately provocative language, kill Modi's India, as he tends to do, knowing full well what he's saying. And Sikhs for Justice has declared that Modi will face what they call a bloodbath, not with bombs, but through economic weapons. And this contrast to what he previously said, not with bombs, not with bullets, but with ballots. That was one of his great rhetoric phrases. And this time they'll face a bloodbath, not with bombs, but through economic weapons. So what his call for action this time is sell Indian stocks, buy American stocks. So he's actually now appealing to not just the Sikh community, but the Hindu community, saying, look, where does your loyalty lie? Is your loyalty with India, or is it with America, where you live? And he's saying it should be with America. This is where you live now. So you should be supporting this Make America Great Again. And by doing that, you should financially support America by buying US stocks. Not Indian stocks. Sell your Indian stocks and buy American stocks. In other words, let's denude India of finance and let's bolster your money that you make in the US, recycle it within the US economy. Let's buy American stocks. So basically, he is supporting this Trump's MAGA vision, this Make America Great vision. So he's shouting, prove your loyalty to MAGA or be ready to leave America. In other words, are you with America or are you against America? There is no in between. So he says this financial warfare to kill Modi economically, buy America stocks, sell India stocks. If you continue supporting India's economy, you are not loyal to MAGA, so you should leave America. And then he does refer again to political warfare, and again he refers to the referendum coming up in LA to disintegrate. And again he comes back to this push to disintegrate, to balkanize India, disintegrate the Union of India. That's an interesting phrase, that the Union of India. I've not heard him use that one before. And this is actually this right. Again is implying that India, as we often do, is essentially a colony taken over from the British Empire that colonized India, created this artificial nation of India from all these different disparate countries or regions into one united India, a union like the European Union, as many of my podcast guests referred to, that India is basically like the European Union. It is an artificial collection of different countries that actually is better off breaking apart and then forming a federation or a union, as Gurpatjot Singh Pannu refers to. But what he does say, really, and again, this is all geared up to promoting this referendum on the 23rd of March, and he shouts out, show up in the thousands, you must all turn up to the Los Angeles Civic Center Plaza to take a stand for Punjab's freedom and against Modi's India. It's time to choose Trump's MAGA or Modi's India. America first, free Punjab. So once again, James, his rhetoric comes to the fore. Let me just quickly play you a video that is released. This is a little promo for another car rally occurring this Saturday. If you're in the area of Gurdwara, Sahib, Riverside, turn up, join this massive car rally. Here you go. A few pictures. And we did, of course, report on the car rally. I think was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? That wonderful car and truck rally that went on for miles and miles. And do it again. Turn up this Saturday, James, and join the line of flag-bearing cars and trucks. Great to see.
It's interesting that he really is pushing this MAGA movement message there, and how that could actually polarize further certain communities. So I was really interested to see that he is actually pushing that and attaching himself so strongly to it. I think that that could be a genius move, or it could backfire. But hopefully, we know that he knows how to get the emotions going. We know he's very experienced in the rhetoric. We know he knows how to get the attention of not just the Sikh community, but all communities. So, I'm sure that he has thought about it long and hard, and very strategically is using this, Angus.
Indeed, yeah, as you obviously say, he's really leveraging this whole MAGA concept will he actually change the mind of any Hindus within diaspora? Probably not. I think it's more about just the it's about the spectacle, and ultimately it's really just about promoting the referendum. So we'll continue to watch, but we will of course be reporting on that referendum a week on Sunday when that occurs. And do turn up if you're in the region to that car rally this Saturday. Go along, get your flag out, get your truck out, and go support the cause. Right, James, let's move on. And this weekend is this is a great one. I remember last year reporting on this, and it makes a great spectacle. This is Hola Mohalla. And this is the wonderful spectacle of Hola Mohalla, which occurs in March, usually, celebrated across the Sikh community globally, both in the Punjab and, of course, across the world. So what is Hola Mohalla? Well, it was a tradition established by Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the 10th and final human guru. And it follows the Hindu festival of Holi by one day. Holi is that sort of that very colourful spectacle. But Mohalla is derived from the Arabic root hal, which means alighting and descending. It's a Punjabi word that implies an organised procession in the form of an army column. This is really what it's all about. So unlike Holi celebrations, which the Hindus celebrate, when people playfully sprinkle coloured powder everywhere mixed with water, or dry actually. It is very colourful spectacle. The Guru made Hola Mohalla an occasion instead for Sikhs to demonstrate their martial skills in simulated battles. In other words, this is all about the prowess of the Sikhs and their prowess, their ability as fighters, as warriors, and we often talk about their fantastic warrior heritage. We even talked about in the comments about their use as mercenaries because they were such effective fighters through the centuries that their skills were used by rulers across the world for centuries. But ultimately, yes, and even the British came up against the might of the Sikh Empire. Ultimately, they prevailed, but ultimately they did absorb many Sikhs into the British Army because they were so impressed and respected this ability, this huge ability of the Sikh warriors to fight so effectively and their courage in battle. And this again is what Hola Mohalla is all about. It's celebrating their ability and telling the world this is what we are, this is what we are capable of. And the words Hola Mohalla then stands for mock fight. That's really what the spectacle is all about. It's a mock fight, and all the spectacles, all the events that occur are celebrating different aspects of warfare and their ability and demonstrating their martial arts skills. Now, during the festival, processions are organised in the form of these army-type columns, accompanied by war drums and standard bearers. So again, it's very visual, and proceeding to give a given spot or moving in state from one Gurdwara to another. And it's originated, as I said, by at the time of the Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who held this first one in Anandpur Sahib in February 1701. So it's been going on for a very long time. And to this day, thousands of Sikhs from all over the world still go to Anandpur Sahib to take part. This is really the centre of it all. So Anandpur Sahib is where the centre, the big one happens, to take part in Hola Mohalla events, which includes displays of Gatka, that's Sikh martial arts using weapons, horse riding, falconry and many other events. Now, central to all this are the wonderful Nihangs. We've talked about the Nihangs in the past. The Nihang Sikhs are this core, the central core. They are almost the elite of the fighting prowess of the Sikh order. And they are very distinctive, and they gather in their thousands at Anandpur on the occasion of Hola Mohalla, and they of course display their martial arts skills. And Nihangs, which are also called Akalis, they're very famous, they're very prestigious, they're very highly respected armed Sikh order. Now, early Sikh military history is of course dominated, unsurprisingly, by the Akali Sikh military order, particularly noted for their famous military victories that they won, often, of course, when they were heavily outnumbered. So there are many, many heroic stories of their exploits, and no wonder they are so highly revered amongst the military world. The Nihangs have historically been held in great affection and respect by the community due to their pivotal role that they've played throughout history, and particularly military history. And despite being such fierce warriors, Nihangs are also known, interestingly, for continually remaining in a state of chardikala. And this word means eternal optimism. So they really are, I suppose, the ultimate human beings, the ultimate warriors. They're almost like the ninjas of the Sikh world. Today, Nihang's activities are currently mostly ceremonial, of course, as we live in generally a peaceful time. But in times of war, the Akalis, the Nihangs, have historically spearheaded the attack on the enemy. They form the vanguard. They're always at the front, taking the battle to the enemy. So again, they are these heroic figures. Hola Mohalla, therefore, is considered a hugely important event for Nihangs. It's their opportunity to really highlight their martial side of the Sikh faith. Baba Nihal Singh, head of Nihal collective Tana Dal, and of course one of the most respected Nihangs still alive, states, there is a tradition with Nihang Singhs that if a Nihang Singh does not attend Hola Mohalla, he is presumed to have merged with God. In other words, he has passed on into that endless eternal cycle. That's what it's all about. So lots of Hola Mohallas occurring. There is one here in the UK which has been highlighted in Slough. It's a Shastar display presentation on portraits of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Gatka display by Babadeep Singh Gatka Akara, children's display, of course, that involves all the families, birds of prey talk and display by first class falconry, Shastar display, shooting range set up, talk and background on Hola Mohalla. It's all there. that's occurring in Slough, but it'll be occurring in lots and lots of different areas. If you're in the community, get out there, go enjoy it. If you're not in the community, get out there and enjoy the spectacle. It is wonderful to watch. We'll hopefully have some more videos of you after this weekend's Hola Mohalla celebrated. We certainly did last year. It does make a fantastic spectacle. And it did occur to me, James, just a final comment on this. Why on earth are the Sikh community, and particularly this military prowess, why are they not as well known and as highly respected as the Gurkhas, certainly here in the UK? This is a very particular UK thing. In the UK, the Gurkhas are very, very famous. They're highly respected. Wherever a Gurkha goes, the British population almost bows down in respect to who they are, because they have this incredible military history, very similar to the Sikhs. Why do the Sikh community not get this? Because the Sikhs, certainly with their military prowess, are at least equal to the Gurkhas, and in many ways even greater, because of course the history of the Sikh Empire. I think it's down to one simple fact. The Gurkhas have their own regiment in the British Army. The Sikhs don't. Why is that? Lots of reasons why, lots of conspiratorial reasons why. I think it comes down to, well, I'm not going to go down that route, but I think it's down to the fact, if the Sikhs had their own regiment in the British Army, they would be as respected, as well highlighted publicly as the Gurkhas are in the public eye. I think that is a campaign well worth getting behind. I think we should support a campaign to establish a Sikh regiment in the UK, because in terms of publicity and promoting the Sikh cause, the Sikh community within certainly the British public's eye, it is a cause that would have a massive positive effect, James.
And it's very cool, because I've actually noticed the last few days, Angus, that there have been a lot of displays and such on social media of the martial arts displays, the colorful, the wardrobes, just everything is very vibrant and really shows the part of the custom and culture that we don't normally see. Really taking off on social media. It is really something that attracts the eye. It's beautiful to look at. And again, through that eye of social media, it is raising so much awareness about Sikh culture, about Sikh customs, and just about the importance and the history of the fighters, the martial arts, and the ceremonies. It's beautiful to see, Angus, and I'm sure that for any of our viewers in British Columbia or in Canada, the US, look it up, and you'll probably find local events that you can actually go and see it in person, because it definitely looks just an amazing event to be at.
Absolutely. So hopefully we'll have some more to report on Hola Mohalla next week. And good luck to all those attending the spectacles. And we hope it is as colourful and spectacular as it is every single year. Right, James, let's move on to our comment section. Quite a bit to get through on this one. We'll start off with Sufty Muffins. And we talked a lot about Major Araya. What a nasty character this guy is. What a dangerous character he is. Well, of course, unsurprisingly, we had quite a big reaction in the comments column. Sufty Muffins said the problem, this is quite an interesting one. This Major is his wife and sister had an affair with Sikh men, and he's not even a Major. He's just working as a kitchen helper. To which Hindu Crusher says, well, no wonder he's bitter. I don't know how true that is, but ultimately, in fact, maybe, James, we need to look behind into the history of this Major. Maybe he's not quite all that he appears.
And we'll have to check that out, because that's definitely worth a deep dive into, Angus, and we'll bring that report once we do that.
Indeed, and more seriously, he is accused of rape and murder. I think he was accused of raping his maid and then murdering her husband to cover it up. So who knows what skeletons this man has in his closet. Anyway, Hardal Singh says, laughter is the best medicine. We couldn't agree more. Good show. Well, thank you. Good comment. About Major Raya, he's a professional joker and he's a no-brainer. He needs medical attention, and he, of course, is a gutless person. And Jasvinder follows up with, a hate machine, he should be in jail. And Hundal says, how does the Indian government, are they blind to this guy spreading hatred and being discriminated against Sikhs? If a non-Hindu was doing this, he'd be in jail by now. Well, James, yeah, I think this really is the point we raised at the time. Firstly, I don't think the Indian government is blind. Modi is actually a follower on social media of Major Araya. So Modi, therefore, publicly endorses what he said. He's not blind to it. He knows full well what Major Araya is doing. Major Araya is a tool. He's a tool tool, figuratively speaking as well, but he is a tool of the Indian Hindutva extremists. They use him to spread their propaganda, to spread the hatred against the Sikh community. So they know what he's doing. He is a tool, nothing more than that. He's just a simple tool. And as you rightly say in the comments here, as we said, James, the guy should, if he was doing this, certainly in the West, he would be in jail for inciting this sort of violence. It is an absolute black and white criminal offence. The fact he is not in jail and not even prevented or blocked in India for his illegal activities, his illegal broadcasts, I think says it all about India, James.
And it also tells us who's probably financing his escapades. And, you know, it's a sad state when they can allow such rhetoric to be blasted internationally from the country that claims to be so tight on, on their security and their freedom of speech, but restrictively. And let's face it, I love the part of the comment where where our viewer says that he's a professional joker and no-brainer. For a second there, I thought he was describing what my ex-wife says about me.
That would, of course, go in Chris's corner, that one, James. So. Right, let's get serious. Sufty Muffins did add this comment as well. This is an interesting one. Just checking the incidents of Chatting Singh Pura and Pulwama, you can understand what the Indian government could do. They're doing these things for centuries and they're excellent in these areas. Now, these, of course, refer to two terrible events, and in fact, two amongst very many. And the point really is about these massacres, these Sikh massacres that have occurred on a far too regular basis throughout history. Now, I'm going to read you just to remind our audience, many of whom may not be aware of the actual details of these two events that Sufty Muffins refers to. On the evening of the 20th of March 2000, this is the Chitting Singh Pura massacre. In the year 2000, 15 gunmen entered the village of Chitting Singh Pura in the Anantnag district. They ordered all of the Sikh men and boys to assemble at the village Gurdwara, and they systematically shot and killed 35 in total. Many others were injured in the attack. At least one man later died of his injuries. The sole survivor of the massacre was Nanak Singh, who recounted the events to reporters. This was the first time in the Kashmir conflict that Sikhs had ever been targeted. So this is a really pivotal event. Head of Hizbul Mujahideen, he's a Muslim, said, look, the Mujahideen have nothing against the Sikh community, which sympathises with our struggle. We assure them that there never was and never will be any danger to Sikhs from Kashmiri freedom fighters. So although the attack was blamed on Islamic militants, the head of the local Mujahideen said, look, it wasn't us. Why would it be us? The Sikhs are fighting our struggle. They are on our side. There is no way we would turn our guns against the Sikh community. Now, one extremist organisation from the Islamic side did try to they tried to confess to it, but that was thrown out. But survivors interviewed by journalists said that they heard the perpetrators, that they looked and spoke as if they were people from southern India, and they shouted pro-India slogans after the massacre. So, was it a false flag? Who knows? The Pulwama attack occurred in 2019. This is a very well-known one, this one. It was a convoy of vehicles carrying Indian security personnel on the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway. It was attacked by a vehicle-borne suicide bomber at Lethapura in J&K. The attack killed 40 Indian Central Reserve Police Force personnel, as well as the bomber himself, who was a local Kashmiri youth from the Pulwama district. It was a very tragic event, actually, for all those involved. The Indian government, this is where the conspiracy sort of comes into it. The Indian government ignored at least 11 intelligence inputs from multiple sources, including the Indian Intelligence Agency, the IB, and J&K police themselves before the attack. So they ignored warnings that it was going to happen. Satyapal Malik, who was the governor of the state at the time, later alleged in an interview that the Prime Minister Modi asked him to remain silent on security lapses by his administration. In April 2023, the Home Minister, Amit Shah, rejected the allegations, said the government has nothing to hide. So what all these attacks point to, terrible attacks, tragic attacks, where both Sikhs and indeed young Hindu men were murdered in cold blood. What was it all about? Now that Pulwama attack. There's all sorts of conspiratorial thoughts about that. They were saying it was a false flag attack deliberately designed for other reasons, etc., etc. But what it all points to, James, thank you, Sufty Muffins, for this comment, is it just highlights just this never-ending war on the Sikh community through these attacks, through terrorist attacks, genuinely terrorist attacks against the community. The death and destruction against young men in the Punjab and J&K just never seems to end. There can only be one end to this, and that is Khalistan. This is why the Sikh community needs its own nation. It can protect its own borders, it can take care of its own people and stop this endless bloodshed, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And we know from history, whether continually repeating itself when it comes to the use of these, the red flag incidents, and how India likes to try to infiltrate the different areas, whether it's getting the Hindutva into the temples, like we reported on the other day, into the Gurdwara. And, we see it all the time. And it would not surprise me at all to see that is another incident where it is a false flag incident that, again, is never been proven.
Indeed, and again, it does create or support the argument for this balkanization of India into more of a federation like the European Union, because a lot of these attacks, a lot of these killings, these massacres, really have a root cause of the fact that these nations are forcibly being collected together. J&K, a prime example. If J&K was a separate country, if Khalistan was established, or when Khalistan was established, all these other areas like Manipur, southern India, Tamil Nadu, if these areas could then take care of their own areas, their own regions were autonomous, and they had their own geographical borders, there wouldn't be a need for central government in Delhi to try and forcibly impose their rule over these areas. There wouldn't be this friction, there wouldn't be this constant killing. So again, it does support this idea of, look, just let all these regions administer themselves, let them become sovereign parts of their own nations, and therefore it would prevent these basic tensions, these basic arguments between these different communities, and we can all move on peacefully and amicably. That is maybe ideological, but that ultimately is really where it's heading, James. So anyway, let's move on.
Like we've said before, Angus, they could look at something on a similar basis of NATO or other regional security councils, in which the nations, the sovereign nations of Khalistan and J&K and all the others, could form this unilateral or this cooperative defense system that can work together. They can have a trade association or union, and all of these things that they could work together on to make the region more successful, more sustainable, and to move it forward. And that's something that each nation may have a challenge in their own, but coming together like that could really bring the entire balkanization to a realization, and a very stable and successful one.
Absolutely. And even in fact, nature always ends up in equilibrium. Nature, just the very basic, fundamental, natural process of life, always seeks equilibrium.
That's right.
India is not in equilibrium. Baldev Singh's comment, India is a fake democracy. Yeah, India is a fake democracy. It's also a fake country. It is an artificial creation of the British Empire. It is not in equilibrium. It is in this constant state of dynamic flux. And that's a fancy way of saying it's constantly fighting against this artificial construct of India. This is why ultimately nature, natural processes will ultimately balkanize India. They will naturally, like Yugoslavia, for example, break up into this more natural equilibrium state, which is Khalistan, which is these separate nations. So Baldev Singh, you're right. It's not just a fake democracy. It is a fake creation fundamentally. Rational Thinker says, good to see you both guys, doing a great job. Keep it up. Well, it's great for your comment. It's great to see you guys in the comments. And as we often say, James, we couldn't do this part of the show certainly without the comments. Maybe we couldn't do the show without our audience, James. So we do appreciate all our commenters and certainly our loyal audience.
Exactly. And, wouldn't be anywhere near as fun to not have all the comments coming in and to be able to see the reaction of the audience through that part of the show. So thank you very much.
Indeed, it's certainly my favourite part of the show. Flopjat says what it's all about. We never stop raising our voice against Indian brutality. Stay strong, stay safe. That is what it's all about, James. We must stay strong, we must stay safe, and we must stay truthful above all else.
Exactly, and that's what we're here for, Angus, to bring the truth to the masses.
And the final comment goes to the Values World. Good job, Satellite TV. Bravo. Well, thank you for that. Of course, I did this comment really deliberately to highlight it's not just me and James. There is a team at Satellite TV. Of course, we have the Punjabi speaking side of the channel. Do go, if you speak Punjabi, go have a look at loads of their videos, loads of high quality videos on their side. I have no idea what they talk about because James and I are still trying to learn Punjabi, and our Punjabi stretches to about 2 words. But apparently, it is very good. So go have a look at the other side of the channel's videos. Definitely worth a watch. But certainly James and I, we are just a small part of the overall team, and we will continue to do our best to bring you the truth and the real narrative, James.
Absolutely. And for our audience out there, you can keep in mind that you can watch certain parts of the Satellite programming on your TV sets through Roku, through Apple TV, and many others. If you go to the link tree in the description here, then you'll be able to find the other platforms that Satellite is available on. But you can also find ways in which you can support the work that we do and to help. We are a small station, and we really appreciate any of the support through the comments or otherwise. That, again, you can find the links in our link tree.
Absolutely. So thank you to all our loyal audience. Thank you for your support. Yeah, do have a look at the link tree. Don't forget to remind you, despite the fact we've got 25,000 subscribers, we are demonetized. We do not make a penny through YouTube, unfortunately, unlike, for example, Major Gaurav Araya, who makes a fortune, I've no doubt. We have been demonetized by the Indian agents. So unfortunately, we rely on your support. But thank you. Do spread the word as well. Get the word out there that we exist. Let's get up to our next milestone of 30,000 subscribers. But in the meantime, that is it for Perspectives for another day. Thank you once again for all your support. Don't forget to keep those comments coming in. They are a great part of the show. We do love talking about them. Very educational. Do keep highlighting things that you'd like us to talk about. Always fascinating to dig into the fascinating, wonderful history and heritage of the Sikh community and the Sikh Empire. We do love to hear about bits and pieces of that. So let us know things you'd like us to talk about. Don't forget you can message us directly at message@satellitetv.com if there's anything you'd like to bring to our attention directly. But that is it for Perspectives for another week. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your loyalty. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.